700 defenders, 100,000 Ottomans. 1 month, the mathematics scream suicide. But at a Croatian fortress called Island Castle, numbers bend under pressure, under cannon fire. Under the weight of what happens when a 72-year-old sultan wants one man dead badly enough to risk his empire. This is Sigetvar, 1566, where a siege became a graveyard that swallowed 20,000 to 30,000 Ottoman soldiers and saved Vienna for 117 more years. If you value documented military history and the true stories of impossible defenses like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. The script is researched and factual. Using sources from Wikipedia's extensively cited Siege of Sigetvar article published in July 2025, which synthesizes scholarly works, including Szabolcs Varga and Nicholas Vatin's detailed campaign analysis from the Battle for Central Europe, published by Brill in 2019. And from the War History Online article from June 30, 2016, examining Ottoman casualty figures. Now back to the information. May 1st, 1566, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, known to his people as the Lawgiver, rides from Constantinople with 150,000 soldiers. 46 years on the throne, 72 years old, gout-ridden, barely able to walk. His body demands rest, but his mind demands Vienna, the ultimate prize. The Habsburg capital that slipped through Ottoman fingers in 1529 when weather and logistics killed the first attempt. Now, 1566, one final push, one last campaign to break Christian Europe before age breaks him. Belgrade falls to Ottoman hands on June 27. Then news arrives that changes everything. Nikola Zrinski, the Croatian band commanding Sigetvar fortress, just destroyed an Ottoman supply train at Siklos, crushed it. The raid threatens everything. Ottoman logistics between Belgrade and Buda run through this corridor. Suleiman pivots. Ager can wait. This Croatian needs to die first. The army turns toward a fortress that sits like an island in marshland. Defended by 2,300 Croatian and Hungarian soldiers under Zrinski's command, plus 2,000 civilians huddled inside the walls. August 1st, 1566, Ottoman vanguard reaches Sigetvar. By August 5th, the entire army surrounds the fortress. Suleiman arrives August 9th, tent erected on Semlek Hill overlooking the battlefield. His Grand Vizier, Sokolu Mehmed Pasha, takes operational command. The Sultan can't lead charges anymore, can barely move, but his eyes watch everything from that hill. The fortress waits. Nikola Zrinski stands on walls he reinforced himself, collecting taxes from nearby regions to build the strongest defense in Hungary. The castle sits divided by water into 3 sections, Old Town, New Town, and the Inner Castle, each linked by bridges, each a separate killing ground. Corner bastions project outward, creating crossfire zones. Marshland and artificial moats channeled from the Alma stream surround everything. Not built on high ground, but built to bleed attackers white before they reach the inner keep. 2,300 defenders. Some historians say closer to 2,500. Either number is a joke against 100,000 Ottomans, but Zrinski knew this was coming. April 23, 1566, 4 months before the siege, he writes to the widow of Tamas Nadezhdy, says he'll defend the fort. King Maximilian offers him a way out, says another captain can take over. Zrinski refuses. Thousands depend on this fortress surviving. He stays, his officers stay. Count Gaspar Alepic, Lieutenants Miklusz Kobak, Petar Paticic, Vuk Papradovic. Croatian and Hungarian soldiers who know what's coming and prepare anyway. August 6th, first Ottoman assault, 200 to 300 cannons. The numbers vary by source, open fire. Walls built for this. Stone and brick reinforced after the 1556 siege when Marko Horvat Stancic held off Ali Pasha. Italian engineer Pietro Ferrabosco made Sigetvar one of the most modern fortresses in Europe. But modern means resistant, not invincible. Ottoman artillery commander Aliportug coordinates the bombardment. Cannons focus fire, palisades splinter. Defenders respond with their own guns, 54 pieces, not nearly enough. That first assault fails. Defenders hold. Crossfire from bastions cuts down janissaries before they reach the walls. The Ottomans pull back, regroup, start digging. Siege warfare is mining warfare. Ottoman sappers dig trenches, approach works, tunnels beneath the walls, fill them with gunpowder, blow gaps. Rush through the breach. Sigetvar's defenders set up vibration detection systems, listen to the earth, track where tunnels run, counter mining to collapse enemy works before they reach critical positions. Over 50 Ottoman tunnels destroyed this way, but you can't catch them all. August 7th, preparations begin. Trenches extend from the southeast rampart. Janissaries dig from 3 sides toward Old Town. Artillery fires, sappers dig, defenders shoot back. August 9th, Artillery destroys the tower in the inner fort. Top level gone. Ottoman observation post eliminated. The new town takes heavy fire. August 9th evening. Zrinski orders withdrawal to Old Town. Too much damage. Too many breaches. August 10th. Bombardment continues. 4 to 5 batteries target Old Town. Swamp drainage begins. Ottoman engineers work the Almas stream embankment, building causeways, draining the natural defense that makes this place an island. 2 embankments go up for better firing positions. Janissaries push closer. August 15th. Defenders expect attack on the Feast of the Assumption. Silence, just more digging, more cannon fire. August 19th. The 7th Assault hits Old Town. Some defenders cut off from the bridge during retreat. Surrounded, killed. August 20th. Swamp mostly drained, just mud now. Attacks from all 4 sides. 6 days of wall bombardment. First assault fails. Ottoman losses mount. Alaportig, the artillery commander, falls. Killed. The offers start coming. Ottoman messengers approach with promises. Surrender and Zrinski can rule Croatia as their vassal. Keep his lands. Keep his life. Just open the gates. He refuses. Every time. They bring his son Juraj's trumpet player, claim they hold the boy hostage, threaten to kill him if Zrinski doesn't surrender. Lie. The son is safe with the emperor. Zrinski fires arrows back with the surrender, demands still attached. No? August 29th. Major assault. Ottoman forces surge forward. Janissaries lead, trying to break through exhausted defenders. Repulsed. Heavy Ottoman losses. The defenders are dying by attrition, but they're selling ground measured in blood. Each day costs the Ottomans hundreds. September 4th. 2 Ottoman mines detonate under the walls. 12 yards of wall gone. 11 meters. Moat filled with debris. Infantry rushes the gap. Zrinski himself leads the counterattack. Grand Master drives them back. More assaults follow, all beaten back. The defenders retreat into the old city. Majority already dead. The castle burns from Greek fire. Incendiary weapon that sticks and spreads. Sigetvar is dying. September 6th. 1566. In his tent on Semlek Hill, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent dies. Natural causes, old age, gout, exhaustion. The longest reigning Ottoman Sultan, 46 years, expires one day before his army finally breaks through. Grand Vizier Sokollu. Mehmed Pasha makes a choice. Tell no one. The army cannot know their Sultan is dead, not with victory this close. Only the innermost circle knows. Couriers ride to Prince Selim in Kütahya. 48 days of secrecy ahead, long enough to secure succession before the army learns their commander is gone. Pasha forges bulletins in Suleiman's name, victory proclamations. The siege continues. September 7th, 1566. Dawn. Turkish artillery and Greek fire bombard what's left of Sigetvar. The castle burns. Flames eat through timber supports. Walls crack from heat. Defenders down to 600 men, maybe fewer. Zrinski addresses them. Historical accounts vary, but the core stays the same. Let us go out from this burning place into the open and stand up to our enemies. Who dies, he will be with God. Who does not, his name will be honored. I will go first, and what I do, you do. And God is my witness. I will never leave you, my brothers and knights. Or words to that effect. The message is clear. We die here. We die fighting. Zrinski makes a choice about his death. No armor. No helmet. His father's saber. A nice suit. A hat instead of a helmet. Dressed like he's going to court, not to die. Wants it known he faced God's judgment with nothing hidden. Offers 100 gold coins to whatever Ottoman soldier takes his head. The gates open. 600 defenders charge across a narrow bridge toward 100,000 Ottomans. Defenders greet them with a mortar barrage first. Iron fragments shred about 600 Ottomans before they can respond. Then, the charge. Zrinski leads, takes 2 musket balls to the chest. Or 1 to the chest and an arrow to the head. Sources split on sequence, but not on outcome. He dies in the first minutes. His men keep fighting, killing hundreds before the numbers crush them. 7 defenders escape. Some Janissaries spare a few prisoners out of respect for their courage. The rest die. Ottoman forces surge into the castle. Finally, rumors spread of treasure inside. Zrinski was wealthy. His castle must hold gold. Thousands of Ottoman soldiers crowd into the fortress remains, searching. They find the magazine, the powder storage. Find the slow fuse Zrinski lit before the final charge. 3,000 Ottoman soldiers die in one explosion. The vizier and his mounted officers barely escape. The blast doesn't change the outcome. Sigetvar has fallen, but it makes the victory taste like ashes. Zrinski's corpse is beheaded. Head sent to either Sokullu Mustafa, the Pasha of Budin, or to new Sultan Selim II. Different sources give different destinations. What's confirmed? The head eventually makes it to Győr, where Zrinski's son-in-law Boldisar Batiani retrieves it. September 1566. His son, Juraj IV Zrinski and noble Ferenc Tahi, bury the head at the Pauline monastery in Sveta Jelena near Shenkovec, Croatia. The body, probably burned, may be buried near the battlefield. Most sources say it's lost. Total Ottoman casualties estimated between 20,000 and 30,000 dead. Some historians say 20,000, others say 25,000, a few say 35,000, the 3,000 from the magazine explosion alone. Tens of thousands more from month-long assaults against fortifications that turned every approach into a killing ground. Almost all of Zrinski's garrison, 2,300 soldiers, dead. The civilians? Ottoman forces massacre them. Standard procedure after resistance. This fierce. 7 defenders escape. The cost is catastrophic for both sides, but asymmetric in what it means. The Ottomans lose seasoned troops, time, momentum. The campaign season is ending. Winter approaches. Suleiman's death means succession crisis. Grand Vizier needs to return to Constantinople. Vienna will wait, has to wait. Emperor Maximilian II assembled an 80,000-man army at Győr. Never moved. Waited, watched Sigitvar burn and did nothing. The siege ends. September 8th. Different sources say 7th or 8th. But by September 8th, the fortress is firmly Ottoman. The army captures nearby Baboksa fortress, then retreats. March toward Nandorfe Hervar, Belgrade. The secret holds, soldiers believe Suleiman still lives, carried in his litter, issuing orders through his vizier. Reality is his corpse rides with them, embalmed, heading to Istanbul for proper burial. His heart, liver, some organs buried in Turbek outside Sigitvar. A mausoleum rises over the burial site, becomes a pilgrimage destination. Within a decade, a mosque and Sufi hospice built nearby. Garrison posted to guard it. The site becomes holy ground, marking the place an empire's expansion died. The mathematics of Sigitvar are simple. 2,300 defenders held 100,000 Ottomans for 34 days, killed 20,000 to 30,000 of them. Cost the Ottomans Vienna. Not forever. Vienna will face siege again in 1683, but for 117 years. French Cardinal Richelieu, decades later, calls it the battle that saved civilization. Hyperbole maybe, but grounded in strategic reality. If Sigitvar falls in a week, Ottoman army reaches Vienna with time to besiege it properly. If it falls in 2 weeks, same story. But a month. Month turns summer into autumn. Autumn means winter's coming. Supply lines stretch, troops exhaust, and then the Sultan dies. Everything stops. The defense becomes legend immediately. Zrinski compared to Leonidas at Thermopylae. 300 Spartans holding the pass, 2,300 Croats and Hungarians holding a fortress, both buying time with blood, both becoming symbols. For Croatia and Hungary, Sigitvar is identity. The heroic defeat that defines how you stand when the numbers say surrender. The Habsburgs failed them. Maximilian's army sat at Győr, close enough to help, equipped enough to matter, and did nothing. Zrinski and his men stood alone and died alone, but they stood. That becomes the story people remember. Zrinski's great-grandson, Miklos Zrinyi, writes an epic poem in 1647, Sigeti Vesidelum, The Siege of Sighet, or Island Peril, 15 parts, modeled on the Iliad and Gerusalemme Liberata. Opens invoking the Virgin Mary as muse, adds supernatural elements, demons and angels fighting while mortals die below. The poem claims Zrinski killed Suleiman personally before dying himself. Not true, but good story. Suleiman died in his tent of natural causes. But the poem doesn't care about that kind of truth. It cares about meaning, what Zrinski represents, sacrifice, faithfulness. The warrior who stands when standing means death. The poem becomes one of the major literary achievements of the 17th century, according to British art historian Kenneth Clark. It's still read, still performed, still matters. 1876. Croatian composer Ivan Zeiss writes an opera, Nicholas Shubich Zrinski. Based on the siege, assigns important roles to Zrinski's wife Eva and daughter Jelena, alongside the historical commander and his Ottoman adversary. The climactic chorus, Uboj, Uboj! To battle, becomes so famous, Zeich wrote it 10 years before composing the rest of the opera. The premiere succeeds wildly. Critics love it. Audiences love it. It stays in Croatian repertoire continuously, performed regularly. National treasure. Because it's not just about one siege. It's about every time Croatia faced overwhelming force and chose resistance over submission. The opera crystallizes that into music. The fortress architecture tells its own story. Szigetvar means island castle in Hungarian, built on marshland, surrounded by water on 3 sides. The 4th side protected by artificial moat systems channeling the Almas stream. Not high ground, force multiplication through engineering, multiple rings of defense, inner castle, old town, new town, each section separated by water, connected by bridges that become choke points, corner bastions with projecting walls, creating interlocking fields of fire. Attack one wall, take fire from 3 angles. The marsh makes approach difficult, limits Ottoman mobility, creates natural obstacles before troops even reach the walls. After 1556 siege, Italian military engineer Pietro Ferrabosco modernizes everything using cutting-edge techniques. Makes Szigetvar the strongest fortress in Hungary at that time, strong enough that even with 54 cannons against 200 to 300 Ottoman pieces, the defenders hold for a month. Ottoman siegecraft is systematic. Trenches approach the walls, artillery suppresses defenders, sappers dig mines, explode gunpowder under foundations, infantry rushes breaches, Szigetvar counters with vibration detection, defenders listen to earth movement, track tunnel locations, dig countermines, collapse Ottoman works, 50 tunnels destroyed this way. But the Ottomans keep digging. September 4th, 2 mines succeed, 12-yard breach, 11 meters, infantry surges through. Zrinski personally leads counterattack, they close the gap, hold the line. The fortress design forces Ottomans to take each section before reaching the next. Newtown falls, defenders retreat to Old Town falls, defenders retreat to Inner Castle, each withdrawal costs Ottoman blood, each section becomes a separate siege within the siege. The design does what design should, make attackers pay maximum price for minimum gain. Zrinski himself is no amateur, born 1507 or 1508, Croatian nobility, Šubić and Krjaković families, Ban of Croatia, 1542 to 1556, Royal Master of Treasury, 1557 to 1566. During his lifetime, the Zrinski family becomes the most powerful noble family in Croatia. His military career spans decades. 1529, he fights at the Siege of Vienna. 1542, saves the imperial army from defeat near Budapest with 400 Croats. Timely intervention at critical moment. King rewards him with Ban of Croatia title. Same year, routs Ottoman force at Battle of Somlyo. 1556, defeats Turks in series of battles. 1564, wins at Szeged, Hungarian city, under Turkish control at the time. He knows Ottoman tactics, knows how they fight, knows how to bleed them. 1561, he becomes captain of Szigetvar at his own request after Marko Stancic Horvat dies. Horvat defended Szigetvar during 1556 Ottoman siege. Zrinski wants that command, gets it, starts reinforcing immediately. Collects taxes from nearby regions, builds small forts overlooking key roads, expands the swamp system. His strategy, hold the towns, deny Ottoman access to the fortress proper, make them fight for every meter. April the 23, 1566, 4 months before siege begins, Zrinski writes to widow of Tomas Nadasti, states clearly he will defend the fort. King Maximilian offers exit, says another commander can take over. Zrinski could leave with honor. He refuses, says thousands depend on fortress survival. He stays, collects his forces. Gaspar Alapich, one of the largest landholders in the region, lieutenants who've served under him for years, 2,300 soldiers total, mostly Croats, some Hungarians. First-hand account by Franjo Trnko, Zrinski's chamberlain, confirms Croatian majority among defenders. Trnko writes, "Počitanje I osvojenje Sigeta," the only eyewitness report we have. He survives, gets captured, later gets ransomed by Zrinski's son Georgi. Other works by Brne Karnarutic in 1573, Nicholas VII Zrinski in 1647, Peter Zrinski in 1647 all confirm Croats made up the core of defensive force. The siege becomes test of wills as much as military exercise. Suleiman personally directs this campaign, 72 years old, longest reigning Ottoman Sultan in history at that point. He could have sent generals. Instead, he comes himself, arrives August 9th, sets up observation post on Semlek Hill, too sick to lead assaults but present enough to make decisions. Grand Vizier handles field command but answers to the Sultan watching from his tent. Ottoman prestige rides on this. If a small Croatian fortress can humiliate the magnificent, what does that say about Ottoman power? Suleiman's earlier attempt on Vienna in 1529 failed. Weather, logistics, timing. Now another campaign toward Vienna meets resistance at a nowhere fortress, manned by Croatian and Hungarian soldiers who should surrender after seeing the Ottoman army. They don't. They fight, and that becomes the problem. Every day Szigetvar holds is a day Vienna isn't under siege. Every Ottoman casualty is a soldier who won't attack Vienna. The fortress pins the entire army, bleeds it, exhausts it, until time runs out. If you value detailed historical analysis and documented military history like this, subscribe. It's how we keep bringing you these deep investigations into history's most crucial battles. Comment below with where you're watching from. We love seeing our global community. This content is researched using verified academic sources, including the detailed scholarly publication from Brill titled The Battle for Central Europe, The Siege of Siget Var, edited by Paul Fodor, analyzing Ottoman politics and Habsburg responses. Cross-referenced with contemporary chronicles and archaeological evidence from the site. Back to the siege, Maximilian's failure to relieve Siget Var is calculated cowardice. August 18th, 1565, full year before siege. Maximilian writes to his brothers warning war is coming. Habsburgs need to prepare. They expect Vienna to be the target. Concentrate forces there, 80,000 men at Győr under Maximilian's command, close enough to Siget Var to march there in days, equipped with artillery, cavalry, infantry. But Maximilian never moves. Historians debate why. Some say he feared Ottoman main force. Others say he was waiting to see if Siget Var could hold without help. Others say internal Habsburg politics kept him frozen, couldn't risk his main army on a relief mission if Vienna was truly the target. Whatever the reason, Zrinski and his garrison stand alone. No reinforcements, no relief column, no cavalry charge to break the siege. Just 2,300 defenders against 100,000 Ottomans, and the promise of help that never comes. The Ottoman campaign mobilization tells its own story. Royal decrees dispatched November 1565. Mobilization orders to multiple Beylerbeys in Hungarian and Balkan provinces, administered by Beylerbey of Timișoara. Sublime Porte feeds false information to Habsburg envoys, wrong targets, misleading status reports. Suleiman and army depart Constantinople, April the 29th, 1566. Historians Szabolcs Varga and Nicholas Vayton both cite 50,000 for initial Ottoman army size. By time they reach Siget Var, reinforcements and allied forces swell the number, 80,000 Ottomans, 15,000 Crimean Tatars, 7,000 Moldavian troops, total somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000, depending on which source you trust. Even low-end estimate, 100,000, represents overwhelming force. The fact they need a month to break through tells you everything about Siget Var's defense. Zrinski raids before siege begins cause the pivot. Siklos attack destroys Ottoman supply trains. Kenneth Seton, historian, argues this success prompts Suleiman to postpone eager attack and hit Siget Var instead, neutralize the threat before advancing. Gyula Pikaldi Nagy offers alternative theory. Falling water level in Drava River determines target selection, not just Zrinski's raids. Either way, Siget Var becomes priority. Small fortress blocking key logistics route between Belgrade and Buda. Take it, secure the corridor, move on Vienna. Should be simple, it isn't. The smoke clears. The last echo of the magazine explosion fades over the marshland. Siget Var has fallen. Nikola Zrinski is dead. Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent is dead. The Ottoman army holds a field of rubble and corpses, a victory that feels indistinguishable from a defeat. The mathematics of the siege were suicide for the defenders. But the mathematics of the aftermath are poison for the victors. The campaign is over. Vienna is safe, but the story of Siget Var is just beginning. What happens next is a masterclass in political maneuvering, the birth of a national legend, and a slow, grinding strategic realignment that would define the next century of conflict between the Ottoman and Habsburg empires. This is the fallout, the ghost of the battle. This is part 2. If you believe that understanding the consequences of a battle is just as important as the battle itself, subscribe to our channel. It is the single best way to ensure we can continue to produce deeply researched historical content, and let us know in the comments what piece of military history you'd like to see us tackle next. This script, like all our work, is built on a foundation of academic and primary sources, ensuring the narrative you hear is as close to the historical truth as possible. Now, let us return to the smoldering ruins of Island Castle in September 1566, the long march of a dead sultan. The first problem for the Ottoman command is a dead emperor. Grand Vizier Sokolu Mehmed Pasha now faces a crisis that could shatter the empire. The Janissaries, the elite slave soldiers of the Sultan, are notoriously volatile. Their loyalty is to the Sultan himself, and the news of his death on campaign, far from home, could trigger a mutiny. A contested succession could spark a civil war. The Grand Vizier, one of the most brilliant statesmen the Ottoman Empire ever produced, understands this perfectly. The truth must be buried, Just as the Sultan's organs are now buried in the mud of Semlek Hill, the deception is immediate and absolute. For 48 days, an empire is run by a ghost. Sokolu Mehmed Pasha issues orders, writes dispatches, and holds court, all in the dead Sultan's name. The official story is that Suleiman is too ill with gout to appear in public, a plausible excuse given his visible decline over the past years. His personal physician is strangled with a silk cord to ensure his silence, the ultimate non-disclosure agreement. The inner circle of the command staff maintains the fiction with perfect discipline. The Sultan's litter is carried with its curtains drawn. Food is taken in, empty plates are brought out. The army begins its long march back toward Constantinople, believing their victorious living ruler is traveling with them. Imagine the tension on that march, the weight of the secret. Every day is a gamble, a whisper in the wrong tent, a slip of the tongue by a junior officer, and the entire army could collapse into chaos. Couriers had been dispatched on the night of Suleiman's death, racing to Kütahya to inform the heir, Prince Selim. But the journey is long, and the prince must first secure his position in the capital before the news can be made public. Sokolu Mehmed Pasha is not just managing an army. He is managing a transition of power across hundreds of miles of hostile territory. He is holding an empire together with pure force of will. The army marches through southern Hungary, then to Belgrade. It is only when they are just outside the city that the Grand Vizier finally reveals the truth. He gathers the Janissaries and the senior commanders. The announcement is carefully staged. He speaks of the Sultan's glorious final campaign, his victory at Sigitvar, and his peaceful death after securing the frontier. He immediately follows this solemn news with a proclamation from the new Sultan, Selim II, announcing a generous increase in pay and a large donative, a traditional gift to the troops upon a new ruler's ascension. The strategy is clear. Soften the blow of grief with the promise of gold. It almost works. The Janissaries mourn, but the promise of payment keeps them in line. For now, the secret, held for an astonishing 48 days, has served its purpose. The succession is secure. The empire is stable. Sokolu Mehmed Pasha has navigated the single most dangerous moment of his career, and in doing so, preserved the Ottoman state. But the cost of Sigitvar continues to mount. The campaign season is lost, thousands of elite troops are dead, and the momentum toward Vienna has been utterly broken. The cowardice of kings and the birth of a betrayal. While the Ottomans march home with their dead sultan, the Habsburgs celebrate a victory they did nothing to earn. Emperor Maximilian II sits with his army of 80,000 men at Győr, a force more than capable of marching to relieve Sigitvar. They never move. Not a single soldier is dispatched. Maximilian watches, waits, and lets Zrinski and his 2,300 defenders bleed and die alone. Why? The question has haunted historians for centuries. Was it cowardice? Was it strategic prudence? Or was it a cold, cynical calculation? The answer is likely a combination of all three. Maximilian feared the main Ottoman army. Engaging a force of 100,000 with his own 80,000 would be a titanic battle with no guaranteed outcome. A defeat could open the road to Vienna completely. He was, in essence, using Sigitvar as a disposable shield. He was sacrificing Zrinski's garrison to bleed the Ottoman army, to wear them down, to buy time. He was also likely waiting to confirm that Sigitvar, and not Vienna itself, was the true and final objective of the Ottoman campaign. But for the Croatian and Hungarian nobility, the reason did not matter. The result was all that counted. They had been abandoned. Nicholas Zrinski was a ban of Croatia, one of the highest-ranking nobles in the Habsburg kingdom. He had pleaded for reinforcements. He had been promised support, and he had been left to die. This act of abandonment becomes a foundational element in the national consciousness of both Croatia and Hungary. It fuels a deep-seated distrust of Vienna and the Habsburgs. It reinforces a narrative of self-reliance, of standing alone against overwhelming odds because no one else will stand with you. The heroic sacrifice of Zrinski is magnified by the emperor's inaction. If Maximilian had sent his army and they had been defeated, the story would be one of shared tragedy. But because he did nothing, Sigitvar becomes a story of pure, unblemished heroism on one side and political failure on the other. It proves to the Croats and Hungarians that their survival depends on their own strength, their own courage. The Habsburgs might be their kings, but in the moment of ultimate crisis, they proved to be unreliable allies. The sense of betrayal would fester for centuries, feeding into future rebellions and independence movements. Maximilian saved his army and perhaps even his capital, but in doing so, he fractured the loyalty of his most crucial frontier subjects. Forging a legend, from eyewitness to epic, the story of Sigitvar's defense spreads like wildfire across Europe. It is the perfect tale of Christian chivalry and martyrdom against an unstoppable infidel horde. Printers in Germany, Italy, and Spain produced pamphlets and broadsheets celebrating Zrinski's bravery. He is instantly compared to the great heroes of antiquity: Leonidas at Thermopylae, Horatius at the bridge. The man becomes a myth before his body is even cold. This transformation is aided by the only surviving eyewitness account from within the fortress, written by Zrinski's chamberlain, Franjo Chernko. Captured after the final charge and later ransomed, Chernko writes, "Posiadanie i oswojenie Sigeta," the siege and conquest of Siget. His account provides the raw material for the legend: Zrinski's stirring final speech, his decision to wear a fine suit instead of armor, the final, desperate charge from the burning keep. It is a soldier's story filled with the grit and horror of the siege. But it provides the factual skeleton upon which a much grander epic would be built. 81 years later, in 1647, that epic arrives. Nikola Zrinski's own great-grandson, who shares his name in the title of Ban of Croatia, writes, "Sigeti Vezedelum, the peril of Siget." This is not history. It is mythology. Written in Hungarian Bak, the poem consciously models itself on the classical epics like the Iliad and the Aeneid. It is a work of 15 parts, a sweeping narrative filled with divine intervention, demonic temptation, and larger-than-life heroism. In the poem, the historical facts are altered for dramatic effect. The most significant change is that Zrinski himself kills Sultan Suleiman in the heat of battle before being slain. This is, of course, false. Suleiman died of natural causes in his tent, but the poetic truth is more powerful than the literal one. It creates a perfect symmetry. The two great leaders, the defender and the attacker, die at each other's hands. The poem elevates the siege from a military engagement to a cosmic struggle between good and evil, faith and apostasy. It becomes a foundational text of Hungarian literature, cementing the siege as a defining moment of national identity. The legend continues to evolve. In the 19th century, as Croatian nationalism surges, the story is claimed anew. In 1876, the Croatian composer Ivan Zajc debuts his opera, Nikola Šubić Zrinski. The opera focuses on the personal sacrifice of Zrinski, his family, and his soldiers. Its climactic chorus, "U Boj," to battle, becomes an unofficial Croatian anthem, a powerful expression of patriotic defiance. It is performed constantly, becoming a cultural touchstone. Through the poem and the opera, the historical event is transformed into a timeless parable of resistance. The story is no longer just about a 16th century siege. It's about every struggle against a foreign power, every defense of the homeland. Zrinski becomes more than a man. He is an archetype. The eternal soldier standing on the ramparts of his nation. If you appreciate how history is shaped by art and literature, and how stories become as powerful as armies, consider subscribing. Our goal is to explore every facet of the past, from the battlefield to the poet's study. And let us know in the comments where you are watching from. It's incredible to see how far these stories travel. Our research synthesizes military chronicles, political histories, and literary analyses to provide a complete picture of these pivotal moments. Back to the legacy of Sigetvar. A castle of scars. The fortress after the fall. What became of the fortress itself? After its capture, Sigetvar was not abandoned. It was too strategically important. Located on the main military road between Buda and Belgrade, it was a vital link in the Ottoman logistics chain. The Ottomans immediately began to rebuild. They repaired the walls, dredged the moats, and garrisoned the fortress with their own troops. For the next 123 years, Sigetvar would be an Ottoman stronghold, a symbol of their power deep in Hungarian territory. The landscape around it changed as well. The small Christian settlement of Turbek, where Suleiman's organs were buried, became a place of Muslim pilgrimage. A magnificent tomb, or turbe, was erected over the site, accompanied by a mosque, a dervish monastery, and a military barracks. It became a sacred site, marking the final resting place of the empire's greatest sultan. The presence of this shrine transformed the area, making it a center of Islamic culture and Ottoman administration in the region. The fortress remained in Ottoman hands until 1689. During the Great Turkish War, the tide had turned decisively against the Ottomans. A Habsburg-led army under Louis of Baden besieged Sigetvar. This time, the roles were reversed. An Ottoman garrison found itself surrounded, cut off, and facing a technologically superior European army. After a prolonged siege, the fortress that had cost the Ottomans 30,000 men to take was surrendered. The cross replaced the crescent on its ramparts once more, but the fortress was now an antique. Military technology had moved on. The star forts and the complex artillery bastions of the late 17th century had rendered the old island castle obsolete. It slowly faded from military importance, becoming a provincial town, its history preserved in its remaining walls, and the stories told about its greatest moment. The ripple effect. Did Sigetvar truly save civilization? Decades after the siege, the influential French statesman Cardinal Richelieu would famously call the defense of Sigetvar the battle that saved civilization. It is a powerful statement, but is it true? The claim is a classic example of historical hyperbole, but it contains a kernel of strategic truth. To understand the impact, one must engage in counterfactual history. What if Sigetvar had fallen quickly, as expected? An Ottoman army of 100,000 ha'arim, relatively fresh and with minimal losses, would have arrived at the gates of Vienna by late August or early September of 1566. Maximilian's 80,000 men would have faced the full might of the Ottoman war machine. Even if Vienna itself had held, the surrounding territories of Austria, Bohemia, and the German states would have been ravaged. The psychological blow to Christendom would have been immense. The Protestant Reformation was in full swing, and a major Catholic power like the Habsburgs, suffering such a devastating attack, could have dramatically altered the political and religious landscape of Europe. The month-long delay at Sigetvar prevented this scenario. It cost the Ottomans their most valuable resources: time, momentum, and their most experienced troops. The onset of autumn meant the campaign season was ending. The death of the Sultan forced an immediate retreat to handle the succession. The Ottoman war machine was not defeated in a single, decisive battle. It was ground to a halt by the friction of a single or impossibly stubborn fortress. The halt was temporary, of course. The Ottomans would return to the gates of Vienna in 1683. But the 117 years of breathing room that Sigetvar bought were crucial. It allowed the Habsburgs to consolidate their power, for military technology to evolve, and for the balance of power to slowly, almost imperceptibly shift. So, did it save civilization? Perhaps not in the dramatic, world-ending sense Richelieu implied, but it did act as a critical break on Ottoman expansion at the peak of its power. It was a strategic catastrophe for the Ottoman Empire, a self-inflicted wound born of Suleiman's personal obsession with punishing one defiant Croatian lord. The 20,000 to 30,000 elite soldiers who died in the mud of Sigetvar could not be easily replaced. Their loss would be felt for years. Most notably at the Great Naval Battle of Lepanto 5 years later in 1571, where a Christian Holy League shattered the Ottoman fleet. Many of the elite Janissary Marines who would have been crucial in that battle were already dead, their bones lying in Hungarian soil. Sigetvar was not the end of the Ottoman threat, but it was, perhaps, the beginning of the end of its inevitability. The final word belongs to the quiet aftermath. Years passed. The world moved on. The fortress was rebuilt, lost, and rebuilt again. Empires rose and fell. But the story endured. The story of a few thousand men who, when faced with annihilation, chose not the manner of their survival, but the manner of their death. They chose to sell their lives at a price so high it would bankrupt an empire. They lost the battle, but in every meaningful way, they won the war. The mathematics screamed suicide. But history remembers that some sacrifices are beyond calculation. If you value history that goes beyond dates and names to explore the deeper meaning of these events, please subscribe and support our work. Thank you for watching.